now, so you've probably had enough of it. I certainly have. Let's bring ourselves to a seated position. Now, I happen myself to be seated on this. It's a sandbag, actually, but I quite like it. But you can sit on a block in Siddhasana. And we want to draw the buttock flesh out and back. We want to have the chest up. We want to be breathing through our noses. Siddhasana is optional because there's been times in my yoga practice life when I haven't been able to sit in Siddhasana. So that happens, you know, if you practice yoga long enough, the body does all sorts of things, as you know. And so you can sit in a different position as long as you're upright. And then it's nasal breathing, shoulders down, eyes half closed or closed, up to you. Attention goes into the heart. And we're going to do a couple of little practices to settle us and to bring us into our energy body. Part of what in Tibetan is called true core, sometimes translated as magical movement, but actually you could translate it as Hatha Yoga. And the first little practice we're going to do, and we're going to go through these fairly briefly, is for the throat chakra, the Vishuddhi chakra. And we're going to breathe in as if the chakra were like a sort of bowl that you could fill up. And what you're breathing in is like sort of nectar. So you're breathing in, filling up that bowl. And then when you feel you're close to filling up that bowl, you take another little bit of breath in and fill it completely. And then you hold your breath and you circle the head. Now, I only recommend small circles, but what you're trying to feel is a connection between your throat and your forehead center, and so these energetic centers. And you're stretching those as you turn your head 5 times one way, 5 times the other. And then when you finish the 5 times one way, 5 times the other, you breathe out all the air. And just at the end, you push the last bit out as if energy were going whoosh, from the throat chakra through the crown chakra and out of the top of the head. So a quicker repeat of that, you're going to be breathing in as if you're breathing into a bowl or a vase, filling it up as if you're filling up with nectar. You hold your breath once you've fully breathed in, and then you turn your head, imagining a channel that goes from your throat to the crown of your head that you're stretching and manipulating as you turn it 5 times one way, turn it 5 times the other. When you finish that, you breathe out. The exhale comes out at the last part of the exhale, but more forcefully. Here's a super quick demonstration. That's it. Not much to watch there. So you can do that now yourself. So imagine the throat chakra as you're breathing in. Perhaps you started breathing in already, like you're pouring nectar into a vase and it's filling up. Once it's full or feels nearly full, take another little breath in and hold your breath. Turn your head. I recommend small circles, but if it feels bigger to do bigger circles, fine. 5 times one way, 5 times the other. Once you've done those 10 in total, you breathe out through the channel that you've been imagining, and it goes out at the last bit of the breath, out of the crown of the head. And we're going to do that one more time after the time you've done. Okay, so you're probably on your last round. Okay, when you finish that, we come on to the next practice, which is to breathe similarly into the heart chakra. Okay, the anahata, it's called in Sanskrit, the heart chakra. You breathe in exactly the same way as if you're filling a vase, pouring out, filling up with nectar as you breathe in. Once you've fully breathed in, you hold the breath. It's called antara kumbhaka. You hold the breath and you do these actions, okay? So, and remember what we're trying to do is sort of stir and manipulate and open the chakra through the movements. So these are the movements you'll take. I won't hold my breath to do it so I can talk while I'm doing it. You can do just 3 like that. That's opening the heart chakra, then the other arm. You can see how it really moves the chest. 3, and then 3 like this. It's a bit more of a sassy move, I think you'll agree. and 3 like that, working on the heart chakra. You're still holding your breath, and then you breathe out all the air. So only 3, 3, 3, 3. Breathe out all the air. But remember, you're manipulating the heart chakra. Okay, so start breathing in when you're ready. You're going to do that twice, like we did the other one twice. Remember, you're pouring nectar into a vase, and then you're rebreathing. That means as you get the vase is nearly full, you take another little bit to just top it up, as it were, and then you start your exercises. And then breathe normally when you finish. So with these exercises, you're breathing into the chakra area. The energy center, chakra just means wheel in Sanskrit, holding the breath in that area, and then moving the prana, the energy within that area as you're doing it. We're going to go to the navel now, the belly button, okay? So when you're ready, we'll just pause for a moment so that everyone has a moment, and also so that everyone has time to not feel rushed. It's important to not feel rushed. So exactly the same thing, but you're going to be breathing into the belly button area. All these areas associated with elements and with what are called vayus, winds. We won't go through that theory now. We'll do a workshop on it sometime. In fact, I've got a workshop plan. So you're going to be breathing into the navel center, holding the breath. And this one's a little more simple because you rotate your pelvis, but I don't know how well you can see, but I'm rotating my belly in so doing. And this will be in one direction and then the other direction, like that. And then that's it. Okay, so you can do 3 to 5 rotations on each side, up to you how you feel with the breath. Begin when you're ready, breathing into the navel center. Also doing this twice. So second time when you're ready. Okay, we do this as the last practice in this little sequence of true core. There is another one, but it's where you manipulate the so-called secret chakra. So we won't do that today. But this one we're going to go into where all the energy channels, or the main 3 energy channels, meet. So in this case, we're going to call that the Muladhara, the pelvic floor. So 3 energy channels. We can visualize them in various ways, coming from the forehead center, 2 of them down to the pelvic floor, the other one coming from somewhere above the crown of the head down to the pelvic floor. There they meet at the pelvic floor. That's what you breathe into, the chakra that you imagine at the Muladhara area. You fully hold the breath, and the movements I'll show you because you need to kind of grok this. So a good energy bath, really thorough. Make sure you do everything. Then we'll keep it to 3 bows and arrows. First to the right, and then to the left. And then you breathe out. So that's all done on an inhalation, okay? And you've got to visualize that you're breathing into the pelvic floor, that you're breathing into a chakra, and that the movements are there to spread energy everywhere equally. Vyana Vayu, it's called. Energy equally everywhere. Okay, so let's take a deep breath into the pelvic floor where all the energy channels you imagine are meeting. Arms out to the side, clap the hands above the head. rub them together, and then energy bar, keeping hold of your breath, and then 3 to the right, bow and arrows, 3 to the left, still holding your breath, and finish, and take breath. So let the breath happen now. Let the breath happen. So there's a lovely sense of, in yoga, of opening your hands, you know, metaphorically speaking. Okay, let's do that same practice again. Remember, you've got to concentrate. We've got to concentrate on imagining we're breathing into the co-terminal point of the 3 channels, the 3 main channels. Arms out to the side. Energy bar. To the right with the bows and arrows. Then you let go of the breath. And you just sit for a moment, and perhaps there's movement. There is in my pelvis. My pelvis is circling itself. I don't mean to make my pelvis sound like, you know, an entity, separate entity with its own will, but you know, the pelvis and my mind and everything else that I call mine belongs to everything. And if you relax, then everything moves everything, you know. So there are spontaneous movements that conduce to the flow of the whole, whether that be the holistic flow of the body, brain, and breath, which of course is desirable physical, mental states that come about through that, or whether you think in wider terms about more universal flow, which is the same thing. You know, it's just the same thing. Now we're going to use a bija mantra. So if you need to change the cross of your legs, by the way, you can, because we're going to do another little practice called uchara, where you send energy up through the central channel using a nada suchi, a sound needle, which is a bija mantra. So it's really simple, but very effective uchara at centering you. You know, we all have this word on off center today, or, you know, we understand what centering is experientially, coming from my heart. We have these expressions. So the center can be visualized either as a part of the central channel, like the heart chakra, or the Manipura chakra, or the whole of the central channel itself. And in this case, it's the whole of the central channel itself. So you contemplate the vacuity, the space within the central channel. So we're going to send it through that central channel, a bija mantra, Hrim, a very powerful bija mantra, associated with the Shakta, the goddess tradition. We won't talk more about that. But when you start the sound, imagine it low and wide, and as you continue up, as you get to what's represented by the letter M, make it very nasal, and make that nasal quite intense and pointed, even like a sound needle, and then you penetrate through these little blockages that are said to be in the forehead center, deep down in the head center, and out of the crown of the head and beyond. So, Hrim. Let's all take a deep breath in for this inhale. Hrim. The crown of the head. Let's do it 2 more times. Make it really nasal at the end. And the last time. Deep breaths at the end of that. There's a sense of being open all the way through the central channel. And you could hear that it, you know, I was making that sound pretty nasal at the end. It's not necessarily very particularly pleasant to listen to. It depends on your sensibilities, but it's about the effectiveness that we're interested in. Now we're going to come out of our cross-legged position and remove whatever support you took and bring ourselves onto our hands and knees and just have a look at the hands. Tuck under your toes. Stretch the arches of your feet. Spread your fingers. Allow a little rocking if rocking helps. It often does help. Helps in what sense? We use this word helps. What do we mean by it? Helps what? Helps to disappear, as it were, like you might disappear into a lovely kiss on the cheek from someone you like, or from the flavor of something you enjoy eating, or from the beauty of a sunset, or from the experience of swimming. Right? It's like you disappear into that. Now with toes tucked under, lift your bottom and press the palms into a deeper weave. Now that, I say press, is a kind of padding of your hands into a deeper weave means it's a psychophysical instruction. Because as far as I can see, and I'm sure if you look at your own life, you've already seen this too, that there's no such thing as psychological without physical or physical without psychological. So psychophysical makes sense, you know, it's like something that you're doing in a way that feels effective for both the mind and the body in terms of integration. Of course, you can bend your knees, extend your knees, move your pelvis left and right and so on, looking for areas that feel that they could be bought online. You know, areas that you feel could be bought online, right? So inner armpit, outer armpit, for example. Inner armpit is this part of the armpit that some schools of yoga call the armpit chest. The Iyengar school of yoga, in fact, calls it the armpit chest. So it's the chest, where the chest and the armpit meet. That elongates. Okay, well done, everyone. Come down slowly. Now, some of you already know, I think, that it's useful to put a block between the heels and buttocks if you've got any tightness in the knees. It might not be a condition, but it might just benefit from that support. So we're sitting in Vajrasana. The breath is nasal. The jaw is soft. Vajrasana is simply kneeling, and quite a few of us will naturally find the pose does move as part of our awareness of energy. Now, our awareness of energy is not the same as our conception of energy. Conceiving energy, whether it be, you know, according to a tantric theory or New Age theory or whatever, or something else, is not this experience. The experience is what we give ourselves to, and it's not a thought, and it's more natural. You know, the word natural is important, isn't it? So we breathe, we roll, we give. We don't get caught up in thinking, because thinking can't function here in any way that serves this moment, because thinking's function is to divide our experience up so it appears to be divided so that we can deal with it, you know, in terms of planning. That's a useful function. No one's saying to get rid of that. But it doesn't help at all, that function, when you're dealing with presence, the interdependence of things, which is what you're dealing with when you're dealing with your body or with a person or with an animal or with nature. Something that's interdependent, which is why human beings have got it a bit wrong regarding their relationship to nature, because they've managed to divide, you know, nature and man, spirit and body and all this sort of thing, you know. And that's just thinking. That's what thinking does. Useful tool that's gone wild, you know, it's run amok. Okay, release and stretch your legs out in front of you. So there's a little bit of reflection on thinking, which has its purpose, and it has its problem. Now we're going to give ourselves a little rub down with the legs extended out in front of us, a little energy bar, again, which are very central to traditional Hatha yoga, and it's just something you feel throughout the body. Then you're going to place your hands behind you on the floor, fingers face forwards. Breathe through your nose if you can. So with your fingers behind you, about the length of a block behind you, so quite far, you can then pull your shoulders back, chest up, shoulder blades deep into the back ribs, and release the trapezius, which is the neck muscle area that you can feel penetrates into the back, so you can release from the back. Okay, now release your head forwards again and bend your legs. Make sure that your hands are a little bit further back, not much, a little bit further back than your shoulders. Take a breath or two. Lift up your pelvis, doesn't have to lift high, it's early in the class. You can move left or right, but you can lift high if you want. If you do lift quite high, sync up chest and head movements, even though there may be anxiety and fear around moving the head and chest together, it's actually the right thing to do to move them together. Then it becomes meditative, challenging, and powerful. Okay, come down, and again, moving chest and head together. Cross your legs with a gap between the legs and pelvis and draw the buttock flesh out and back. Palms face up, breathing is nasal, jaw is soft. Perhaps there's movement. It's just a moment or two here. Perhaps there's movement, left, right, forwards, backwards. And that movement is meditative. Right? Meditative means absorbing, like, you know, a kiss on the cheek from someone you like, you know, or, you know, the feeling of sunlight on your face, huh? Or looking at light coming through new leaves on trees. Or whatever, you know. Okay, release your fingers. Now I'm turning around to face you because we're going to bring our legs out of the cross-leg position. We're going to hold our big toes, right? This is called ubaya, which means both, pardangushta, which means big toes. So there you go, you're holding both big toes. We're going to lean back in a minute, so make sure you're not going to come off the mat if you lean back, because I find it a bit uncomfortable if that happens. So breathe easy, hold both big toes, it forms a mudra, remembering that most physical yoga really is based, because physical yoga is a funny thing to call it. Most yoga that includes bodily movements really comes down to expression and energetic seals and seats. Okay. Expression, energetic seals and seats, poses you sit in. Anyway, more on that another time, but we're going to lean back until our feet come up off the floor and we're breathing freely, right? And we're beginning to play. So you could extend and bend. You know, yoga could be so boring and dull if it was a thing that you do. And I know a lot of, and I've known a lot of yoga teachers over the years, and I've known a lot of yoga teachers who stop teaching yoga because they get bored. Because they're like, oh, Padangusthasana again, here I am again. But that's that's what happens if you slightly miss the point. The point isn't to do the pose. The point is to use the pose as a point to disappear into the field, as we've called it before. So you can have one down, one up, both together, both apart, both bent. You know, the purpose is to feel into the interdependent experience. So movement that helps that. So I've got my legs straight, but I'm moving side to side. That's helping to keep a sense of flow, because the field itself is where we're not caught up in any particular. If you think about physics, you'll know there are fields and particles. Particles, the particle physicists will tell you, are not really real. They're just excitations in the field, which is real. Okay. We'll come back down when you're ready. We're going to bring the feet together. Now, for some people, this pose Baddha Konasana is best off done either against a wall or back to back with a friend. So if you've got any of those sort of situations available, then I recommend that to you. Some people find sitting on a block useful. And if you are sitting on a block, it obviously makes your bum further away and shoulders further away, therefore, from your feet. So you might need to use a belt around your feet instead of holding with your hands. So there's a few variants offered there. I definitely recommend having your back against something if you can, if it's not too troublesome. But otherwise, drawing the buttock flesh out and back, really getting some length through the adductors, the inner thighs, the brevis longus, magnus, pectineus, and gracilis muscles, the adductors, by moving. So if you move one way, one direction, the adductor on the other side can release, right? And you do the same. And there's a sense in which you can kind of walk out your inner thighs, if you know what I mean. It's something you kind of feel into. And the yogin is not, not judging their pose by how far or close their knees are to the floor. They're judging their pose by their ability to use it as a portal, as a way through into this experience of the interdependence. Because every experience you have, every particular experience you have, is part of this interdependence. So you go through it to the field that it's part of, experientially speaking. Okay, so I could keep playing with that, you know, but obviously follow your own intuition, and your breath should guide you. It will guide you. The breath, if it flows, everything's flowing. If it's not flowing, then, you know, nothing's flowing. So your breath is your compass, right? So keep absorbed, don't be distracted. Know there's so much to this very moment, and it's your path to freedom. This isn't a pose that you do. This is your path to freedom. Okay, I just think this pose is magic. One of the best classes I ever went to was run by my old friend David Ronchetti, and he did this pose for half an hour in the class, and it was like, oh, Dave, that was amazing. You know, it was an amazing class, and I went to that class. I'm going to say in 1996. So you know, I still remember it. That was a while ago, wasn't it? Now. Okay, come out nice and easy. I'm sure you might feel like I do, and you could stay longer, but we're going to come out nice and easy and back onto our hands and knees, actually. Once we're on our hands and knees, if you're a bit neurotic, you might want to sweep your mat. That's me. And if not, you might not. And then your hands are equidistant, is ready for a down face dog. Middle fingers facing forwards, check that. Have a good visual check. Middle fingers facing forwards, space between all the fingers, and then toes tucked and lift up. Okay, pad your paws into a deeper weave into the mat and allow movements such as moving your pelvis left and right, bending, extending your knees. Use movements like that to get into it, right? Get into it. We have so many phrases that we just are a bit sort of off the cuff that we say in our language and languages that point to being centered and to getting into something as a sort of pointer to a center. You know, getting into something means you're absorbed, right? And it means lots of other things are not bothering you anymore, past and future. Even getting into dancing, if you're up and dancing, you're like, oh, I'm, you know, really getting into it, you know, and after a while, there's nothing else. That's what yoga should feel like, right? Okay, come down, back to hands and knees, and then down to your forearms. Your hands as if you're holding bunches of flowers and breathing through your nose. From here, we're going to step our feet back. We're going to take our feet back and we're going to play. We're going to move forwards, backwards, left, right. We're sloping from shoulder blades to buttocks and from buttocks to heels. We're breathing through the nose. We're purposing our movement, as we always do, for access to the interdependent field, which, you know, you might think, what is this interdependent field? You've felt it thousands of millions of times. You feel it so many times whenever you feel absorbed, whenever you feel amazing, whenever you feel that some experience is amazing, you know, like a beautiful sunset. It's like, oh, we might even say, oh God, that's so spiritual feeling. I feel sort of spiritual. That's interdependence. Okay, knees forward. Coming up to your regular kneeling position with blocks where necessary between the heels and buttocks, and breathing through the nose. Other equipment might also be helpful. If your ankles are tight, for example, a little rolled up sock underneath the front ankle of each foot can help. Jaw soft, breathing deep. Let's let the breath happen. Let's let the breath happen. Okay. So let's let the breath happen. So again, the sort of visual image is of a clenched fist opening up, the palm open wide. Just like a mudra that we often see in Indian iconography called Varada mudra. In fact, the Ganesha that's above my head has Varada mudra. Okay, now releasing your hands and stretch your legs out. And once you stretch your legs out, we're going to bring our hands behind our head in a way that, look, yeah, great, like that. It looks a bit casual and relaxed. And we're going to roll the body back, not trying to keep the back flat, letting it roll back until the toes want to lift up, the feet want to lift up, and you raise your toes, and it can be bumpy and bouncy. You don't want to hold this too static. The toes ideally come up to the level of the eyes. And again, I'm going to recommend a little bit of movement, a bit of freedom, a little bit of lightness, even like a sort of dandelion seed is light and bobs around on the faintest of breezes. Okay, bend your knees. That's a big pose. You did well. Hug your legs. Lift your chest and lower back and catch your breath and move left and right in ways that help to feel the sense of flow, which is the definition of the field, right? So you know, you've heard all these phrases, but not all put together before. We hear about flow. We hear about non-attachment. You know, we hear about immersion. We hear about returning to the source. We hear about being centered. But what we're not necessarily told is that they're the same thing. Right? Because, for example, if you go with the flow, if you let it be, you know, let things flow, what you're doing is not getting caught up in the particular. That means you're refocusing on the field, not the particular. And what does that do? Well, focusing on the field means that gripping and grasping and grabbing don't even start up. They don't see anything to grasp, so they don't get triggered. So the mind stays open, and that profound openness is its true state, right? And it's profoundly peaceful and comfortable. Okay, stretch out your legs again. You did really well with that, and you know that's actually put you in a bit of a spot, because that means that I know that you'll be all right to do the next one too. We're going to lean the body back, this time by 30 degrees, not as far, and the legs come up. No, Jim, no. Yes, I'm afraid so. And good job. And the arms come forward. Now you can, if you need to, bend the knees. That's okay. But again, strength doesn't come from hard muscles. It comes from sharing, breathing, being light like a dandelion seed. You know, letting movement happen, being uncontrived, not getting in the way, and so on. Saying all that, we probably had enough. Bend your knees. Well done. Hug and lift, right? And move. Hug, lift, and move. And breathe. Hug, lift, move, breathe. So jaw soft, eye soft, brain soft, throat soft, tongue soft, everything soft that can be soft. And just enjoying that flow. It's all that's happening. You know, anyone who's been around in the yoga world for a while would have seen the advent and the rise of flow yoga from seemingly nowhere, you know, and until it's almost ubiquitous. But we don't always understand what flow really means, you know, and ultimately means. So hopefully we do today. You know, I'm sure you have before, actually. But flow means giving, huh? It means surrender, like a surfer surrenders to a wave. Okay, now back should be nice and loose now. So we're going to come down onto our backs with our hands underneath our heads and taking a few deep breaths. So just relaxing as if you're on holiday. You know, enough said about that, about holidaying. Anyway, hands behind the head, breathing easy. Flex up your hips, right? That means your feet lift, your thighs drift towards your pelvis, and you might feel a sort of kiss as your lower back kind of kisses the floor, you know. It's, oh, you know, it's sort of juicy, right? So breathing into that. I'm reminded of my stepdaughter, who's a bit of a punk, actually, you know, in a kind of really ruby wax kind of lovable way. And she's got a saying, and when she likes something, it's like, oh, that's the juicy stuff, that's the good stuff, you know. And that's kind of how this can feel. Like, oh, that's the good, yeah, that's the juicy stuff. Lift up your head when you're ready. And then you feel richness in the deep belly, richness, like meditative, living richness. Extend one leg out to about 45 degrees. It loads the belly, which gives us an opportunity to meditate, to feel the subtle, the microscopic changes that are happening. Flex that back and extend the other. Again, you feel the belly load, you keep the lower back close to the floor. Let's do it one more time on each leg. Again, feel, go into the subtle, you know, like a microscope tuning in. Last leg, last time. Good job, everyone. Come down with the head, down with the feet. Everyone take a deep breath in with a sigh-like exhale. You can really let go. Oh, you know, and not just one, and not even just two, but as many as come. So the yogin gives. This is the chief quality of someone who practices yoga, is that they're in the practice of understanding that giving is where you find power. Giving, you give to a situation rather than hold tight your ideas and opinions and views. And if you give to a moment, the living moment, then you can surf it. You know, that is to say, you ride the moment appropriately. Your timing is good, you know, you're on point. You say things that are appropriate to the people you're saying them to. You act in ways that are appropriate to the energies in the room. So that's what we're all about in yoga. Lift up your feet, open up the angle at the back of the knees. So this is what gives yogis what are called siddhis, what seem to be powers. They're not really powers as such. It's just because we're open to the moment that power arises. To the extent you're open to any moment, power arises. The power to know what to do, the power to do what you need to do, and the power to want to do what's right to do. Lift up your head. Bring opposite knee and opposite elbow towards each other, although they don't have to reach, right? Your hands don't have to be stuck to the back of the head. They can slide around, you know, so your neck is peaceful. Obviously, we're going to do the same on the second side, just as beneficial for the back muscles and fascia as it is for the abdominals. We're going to do it one more time each side. Make sure you turn the process into love, which is a sort of passionate interest. Last time, last side. Love is a passionate interest. It's passionately interested. It just wants to know. It wants to eat the experience. It wants to become the experience. Back to center, head down, feet down. Take deep breaths, and also really deep breaths. Really deep breaths. So we often feel like we want to eat something because we want to merge with it, right? If we love it. There's that sort of sense. People even say it, don't they? I want to eat you, you know, because I love you so much. Or people say it to babies sometimes, oh, I could just eat you. And it's sort of course, can sound terrifying, but what's meant is, it doesn't love you so much, you know, I just want everything to be soaked into everything else. Now that's the field right there. That's what we're talking about. Now release your hands from behind your head and raise up a leg. Doesn't matter which it can be left or right. And then let your leg move, so you can plantar and dorsiflex your foot. You can also add other movements like circling, like bending, extending, like shaking, like so just get your leg feeling energized and flowing. And that can be anything. So, you know, sometimes a good shake out of the ankle or foot, sometimes just dorsiplantar flexion. But the thing is, it should feel like it's flowing, you know. So I'm not going to dictate what you should do specifically. I'm just giving suggestions of things you could mix together in various amounts that you could use to feel this flow. the way I move, is very particular to the experiences of this particular body, and so are the way you move as well, right? Okay, once you've got that leg feeling hydrated and alive, turn the heel in and toes out, bend at the knee, cross that leg over the other. You're just beyond the lateral malleolus, the outer ankle. Lift the foot that's on the floor off the floor, plunge through, interlace, and return the head back to the floor, keeping the neck long. This is one of two versions, or two rather poses that have the same name but are different poses. The name is Suchirandrasana. And we can roll around, breathing into it, hydrating tissue around the hip and the groin, keeping the jaw soft, and utilizing the opportunity to be eaten or to eat the experience, right? So one way or the other, you want to merge with it. Great. Okay. You want to merge with it. And that should show up. It should show up in your breath, for example, for one example. So when you're merging with something, your breath becomes open and expressive and spontaneous. The yogin becomes powerfully awake, like a sort of spontaneous, powerful dance, Yoga's not all sort of please and thank you, it's got a wild side to it. But it's not wild as in repressed stuff, bursting out of the seams. But it's wild in the sense that it is energized and responsive to the way things are. Okay, release that leg and place the foot, both feet down. Tuck the buttocks under 2 or 3 times. Rest your hands on your upper chest while you're doing it, and catch a breath, or 2 or 3 or 4. So take a few properly deep breaths. A few properly deep breaths. Raise a leg. Dorsi and plantar flex your foot when you're ready. Breathe freely. And then you can add, as before, circles, half circles, lateral, medial, bending, extending, shaking. The point is to get that sense beyond thinking. Unmani. We have this word in the Hatha Yoga texts. Unmani means beyond thinking, right? So you can't just tell yourself not to think, because that's another thought. You have to facilitate it. And one way to do that is to move. That's why people dance, because they go beyond thinking when they go out dancing, or used to go out dancing, or dance to some sort of, morning dance party on Zoom or something, which is kind of fun. I've been to one myself. It's rather fun. So, dancing is getting the whole experience to flow, rather than the grasping that is thinking. Thinking goes, what's that? Grasps particulars. When you've got that leg feeling lively, turn the heel in, toes out, cross that leg over the other leg, past the lateral malleolus. It's the fancy name for the outer ankle, which is actually a prominence of the fibula bone. Lift the foot that's on the floor off the floor, plunge through, interlace, and then return the head to the floor, but keep the neck long. So I have to double extend my neck, that is, extend it and then do it again, and maybe again after that. And then roll about a bit. So we have a very clear, easy model for how to practice yoga, described with this little triage of play, Sanskrit word lila, purpose, the Sanskrit word artha, and signs that reveal that purpose is actually happening and not just contrived. And that's the Sanskrit word lakshana, play, purpose, and signs. So play is the way you might move, whether that be subtle internal or stronger external, or something between the two. So you play. The purpose is absorption. So if you're rolling to the right and it feels juicy, like the good stuff, that's the good stuff. Oh, that's the good stuff. And the signs come through like doubt going down, doubt disappears, spontaneity arises, breath becomes freer, the yogini feels like she is being danced, right? That's how it is when you go out dancing after a while. You feel like you're being danced. And that's such a relief from being the person, because the person is a contrivance that doesn't actually match anything in reality, whether we contrive it out of gender, male, female, or non-binary, or whether we, contrive it out of age or culture or country or whatever, political affiliation. That me is particularized, but the me that you really are is not, right? Okay, coming down is not particularized. Okay, tuck under the buttocks, tuck under the shoulder blades, take a breath or 2 or 3. Now we're going to raise our arms up as if we're reaching up for the heavens. So raise your arms up and lift each arm to lift each shoulder blade. So you raise your right arm, the right shoulder blade comes to the floor, left arm, left shoulder, and you just do that a few times and start to feel that as you do that, you can also move your arms side to side. So as you raise your right arm, you can also pull the right shoulder blade as you do it, taking it to the left side. So if you go to the left, you can raise your right arm and pull the shoulder blade. If you go to the right, you can bring the right arm and pull the shoulder blade. Gradually, you move the arms further over the head by moving the shoulder blades as many times as you can. Eventually, by pulling and moving and warming and hydrating the fascia over and over again, the arms might be able to come down to the floor or to blocks. They might be close together or might need to be a little further apart, doesn't matter. They might be straight or they might need to be a bit bent. But this movement of the shoulder blades is really what drives this whole thing. So you can keep doing the shoulder blades any amount of times. We're going to add the legs and raise them up. The pose is simply called Urdhva Prasrita Padasana. But if we translate that into English, it sounds a lot less interesting because Urdhva means upwards, Prasrita means spread out, Pada means foot, and Asana, well, it means seat, but it's come to mean posture. Okay, now moving again, your shoulder blades a few times, get that hydration going on, adjust your neck if you need to, adjust the legs, taking a few breaths this way. Now, I think it's great to play with Urdhva Prasrita Padasana as we are, but you can also play with it in a variety of other ways, and we're going to offer that now. We're going to take one leg down towards the floor. It doesn't have to reach the floor. It doesn't have to not reach the floor, but it goes to wherever. Lower back gets closer to the floor, the closer the leg gets to the floor, and then it comes up. And you breathe through your nose. So we don't want to use the lower back muscles. Do the other leg when you're ready. We don't want to use the lower back muscles, so we keep the lower back close to the floor. Okay, raising that leg up when you're ready. Now, before we do the final part of this, move your ankles, move your legs, bend, extend your knees, move your shoulder blades, get everything really hydrated and coming into the posture through whatever movement helps. And when you feel things have come together that little bit more, lower both your legs together, all the way down to the floor, keeping the lower back close to the floor as you journey. Breathe normally. When you land, you melt. That is, you let your elbows bend so your arms are totally comfortable. You let your legs fall out, just adjust until you're all melty and comfy. And then just be melted like a chocolate button that's been left out in the sun. Not that we got much of that at the moment, but and not that there's much chance of me ever leaving a chocolate button out in the sun. They don't last that long. But if I did, what would happen to it? It would melt, right? That chocolate button is you, right? It represents you or me, And it's sort of button shape. Represents us trying to hold ourselves in a shape as a being somebody. And the sun represents light. which is constantly trying to melt us. We constantly trying to, oh, I'm a chocolate button. But just let yourself melt. Right? Bend your legs, roll over onto your side. Oh God, that's made me really want to eat chocolate buttons now. Anyway, I haven't got any, so I can't. Lay on your side. Support your head with your hand. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Not everyone feels comfortable supporting their head with their hand, I should say. Some people will feel better if they extend their arm and place a block or a blanket or a towel between the head and the arm. So feel free to do that if it's not comfortable otherwise. Then we're going to extend the bottom ribs, lengthen them by pressing into the hand that's not under the head and lifting and taking those bottom ribs towards the shoulder. To make sure the energy doesn't get stuck and bunched up in the shoulder, we extend the arm as well. And then when ready, top leg comes up and we begin to play, right? Backwards, forwards, movements that begin to hydrate the hip and the adductors. So it could be moving between horizontal and vertical planes. You could add extending and bending, kicking out. But you don't have to. These are just, if the body finds it beneficial. It's worth also saying that balance can be a bit of an issue in this. So it is fine to bend the bottom leg and to just choose where you're positioned best. Anyway, we're going to eventually get looser in the hip and then take hold of the big toe with the index finger. That's the one you point at things with. Middle finger, that's the one you never raise to people because it's incredibly rude to do that. And with the thumb. Okay. Now, as you raise your leg by degrees, and your leg doesn't have to go to straight by any means. The point of this pose isn't to straighten the leg, but to give yourself to the breath-centered sensuality of the moment, right? So keep the jaw passive. We call it in yoga aparigraha, empty of grasping, moving away from grasping. And so if you're not full of grasping, what are you full of? What is this full of? If it's empty of grasping, what's it full of? Love, spontaneity, attention. These are the kind of things that fill the body when it's empty of grasping. Okay, super beautiful, love ya. Bring your leg down, bring your head down, give yourself a moment. And when you've had a moment, you come up from the side by pushing with your hands and you go back down. OBS. OBS, by the way, is an abbreviation of obviously. So you're laying on your side and breathing deep, getting that connection by lifting, extending the ribs and the armpit multiple times, adjusting and readjusting beyond thinking. Thinking's job is to grasp individual sensations and phenomena and pretend that they are real in the sense that they are permanent and lasting when they are not. And that causes some utility and some problems. I think one of the best books to explain this whole phenomena is by Steve Taylor, and it's called The Fall, F-A-L, F-A-L-L, The Fall. So, and that will save me talking more about it. But anyway, read that book, I recommend. Breathe easy, jaw soft, rolling around a little. Bring your top leg up and begin your play. Don't forget, you can bend the bottom leg if you need to. The play is between the horizontal and the vertical plane. I quite like to extend and bend my knee as well. That might suit you, but it might not. What we want is the leg eventually to arrive in the upright position, as it were, but with maximal agreement, minimal disagreement. We want to find cells and fibers that don't quite agree, and find ways to get them to come round. It's not force. That's not how you get things to come around. It doesn't work. That causes repression, which comes back to bite you another time. So it's integration. So everything's equal in the mind of a yogin. It's called upeksha. So that means there's no particular sensations that are getting in my way. You know, those sensations need to be asked what they need to come into this. They might need time. They might need love. They might need you to take the pressure off them. They might need an invitation. You know, who knows? And then take hold of your big toe with your index finger, middle finger, and thumb when you're ready, and catch your breath. Similar to the other side, when you're ready, you begin to raise the leg up, and it doesn't have to straighten. That's not at all important. It might straighten a bit and then bend again as part of your flow. Anantasana is the name of the pose. Breathe into it. Give unto it. Power comes through letting go, not through clinging. All of us are miseducated. We're all miseducated. And we've been told that you get stuff by grasping, by going out and getting it for yourself. Going out with both hands and grabbing and grasping and gripping. But it's a mistake. You get what you need and what you ultimately want by letting go. What you ultimately want, of course, is knowledge, to understand what's going on right now, isn't it? Just want to know. I just don't get it. What's going on? Be nice to know, wouldn't it? Well, if what's going on is what's now, what you've got to give to is now. And what you've got to give is pre-conditioned ideas and opinions held in the body, held in the breath. Attachments to the future, attachments to the past. You've got to give those up if you want what you want to come true, Okay, well done. Bring your leg down. Top leg on top of the bottom leg, curling up from the side and bringing yourself up nice and easy. We've been down on the floor quite a while. We're going to sit on a block or possibly two. If you are on two, however, you'll need another one behind you as well. If you're on just one, you might not. If you haven't got blocks, you can use neatly folded towel. And yes, you do need to fold things neatly in yoga. That's not just because of my own uptight sensibilities, you know. I mean, it's partly because of that. Now, once you've got your legs extended out, we're going to sweep our legs round to one side. And this is where you might want more than one block, because if your knees are tight, making more space means that the knees have less compression. So that can feel better. Here, the lower shin of one foot goes into the arch of the other, right? That's straightforward. And I like to sort of shift around until it feels, well, I can't, you know, as soon as I get the feeling that I want to feel, I can't tell you what that is because it's beyond words. Because words, like thoughts, are little constructs around bits of reality, but reality is interdependent. It's convenient to circle around isolated bits and say that, you know, or this or that is real. It's convenient. You need to do that for planning. You need to do that about an idea of self. I am a thing. like the thing that we think ourself is something we imagine that's permanent, you know, unchanging. But we know that that's not the truth, right? But for me to be able to plan what I'm doing tomorrow, I have to think that I am a me, you know. That's useful. That's good. We want that. But when it's gone into overdrive, it starts particularizing when you don't need to particularize, you know, when you're better off feeling the interdependence. And that's in most situations, actually. Lift and turn away from your feet and breathe through your nose. So most situations, obviously not all, require presence. But to get to some of those situations in the first place, you might need planning. Like you would have needed to use thinking to come to this class today, to make sure you had the appropriate Zoom link and password, and you checked your clock, and maybe you set an alarm last night to make sure you didn't oversleep. That's good. But now that you're here, right, planning's not the right tool anymore. Because you put that tool down, you pick up presence. And that is relaxation, that is breath, that is movement, that is love, that is intimacy, that is spontaneity. And it all shows up in the breath. That's the sign part. Okay, beautiful. Well done. Return to center. Stretch out your legs. Give yourself a little rub down. Good old energetic rub down. Feet, knees, face, armpits, everything. Chest, buttocks. And then legs over to second side. And breathing through your nose. Again, we've got the shin of one leg crossed over into the arch of the other, and the arch of the lower leg foot points across. So you sort of make a sort of crossed shape with the feet. Again, there's a gap between the knees. Again, you might be like me and find little adjustments, because like a painter might put a stroke of paint on her canvas and then step back, and then the feeling where to put the next stroke comes, and then the feeling where to put the next stroke, and before she knows it, she's in flow. And that's why she paints. She paints because she loves flow. A real artist, I'm talking about, someone who's a real artist. Lift and turn, and breathe easy. Jaw soft. So one of our community, I don't know, are you here today? I'm looking at Sophie Abbott's painting right now, and it's definitely got that feel. I know for a fact that that's how Sophie paints. With this sort of intuitive feeling, and I know she feels whole when she paints like that, you see. And some of you are musicians, and some of you are singers, and some of you are dancers, and some of you are chefs, and some of you, like to garden or be with nature. Any of those and other things too. Things that you love. You love because of the surrender. We love because of the surrender. Surrender is home. Surrender is home. Jaw soft, breathing deep. Okay. Return to center. When you're ready, stretch out the legs again. Just take hold of a belt or a strap, yoga belt or regular strap. Could be a dressing gown belt. Most people better off sitting on a block for this. You can very swiftly ascertain whether or not you'll be better off sitting on the block by sitting straight on the floor and drawing the buttock flesh out and back, feeling the front hip points, ascertaining that if they are a little forwards of your sitting bones, then that will be accompanied by a little scooping out of the lower back. Great, then sit on the floor. If you don't have that and this front hip points are back from the sitting bones, and your back feels a bit shorter and tighter, more curved out, sit on a block, okay? Either way, if you're now just coming to sit on the block, which most people should do, to be honest, then draw the buttock flesh out and back, and then we're all bringing the strap around our feet, and breathing through the nose. If you, most people don't wear shorts, only really me and one or two others, die-hard students. But just as a note, if you are wearing shorts, it is better to be on a blanket than on a yoga mat, because your skin sticks a bit to the mat. Anyway, that's just a note for one or two. Pull on the belt, feel the back of the body go forwards in towards the front of the body, and lift the front of the body up. breathe freely and allow free movement, your eyes might be closed. Empty of grasping, the yogini gives herself to the pose. Her hand or his hand opens, their hand opens, and they give themselves to the pose. Sometimes people find their pelvises tilt, and in fact, for everyone, the hamstrings will definitely start to, it's not just the hamstrings, but the whole back chain will start to melt. And if your legs are real short and your arms are real long, sometimes comes to pass that you might as well hold your feet. I like to hold my big toes. But at no point are we gripping, grasping, grabbing. At every stage, we're interiocepting, perceiving the inside of our bodies. We're breathing, we're giving. The yogini gives herself. And in doing so, she finds herself. The yogini gives herself totally. Release the tight fist of grasping, and boundless infinity is revealed. And that infinity is a dance. It's beautiful. It means that you know nature. But it also means you know essence, because they're both revealed at the same time. Coming back up in your own time. And we're going to lay ourselves down on our backs. How sad already. But it's not that sad, because it's one of the best poses you can do. So we're going to be coming down to our backs for Shavasana. And it is a pose. So important is it that it's one of only 4 poses that features in the Dattatreya Yoga Shastra. The yoga teachings of Dattatreya. Yoga, Shastra means teachings. It's a bit like the English word ology, or the English suffix ology. Yoga Shastra. So take a lot of care laying yourself down. Make sure you've tucked under the buttocks. You've got, probably best to have head support too. Make sure your arms are not too close to your body. You should be quite a good distance away. I do think that sometimes we're told to bring our arms too close and the legs too wide. It really should be the other way around. Arms wider, legs not too far. The practice is one of giving. What do you have right now that can be given? Most obviously, weight. Here's a few words. I just pre-read them from Milarepa, one of the greatest yogins who ever lived, in my opinion. And I'll just qualify a couple of words here that you may or may not know. Samsara is the cycles of birth and rebirth that are sort of unfree, compulsive. Yama, in this context, is the god of death. And that's it. You should know all the other words, I think. By cunning and clinging in samsara, one is confined. If thoughts arise, so does the jewel. Words, by talking, cannot be transcended. A teaching without lineage is broken. Failure to observe the discipline brings yama. If you become entangled with relatives and foes, you fall into confusion. With the thought of being comes the idea of taking and rejecting. From the conception of existence follows clinging. Without genuine enlightenment, one's mind is obsessed by wishful thinking. All talking will become sheer nonsense if one cannot elucidate the truth. All acts are completed within one's mind. How wonderful is this experience of unceasing ecstasy? I, the yogi who has completed his devotion, ever feel joyful in whatever I do. So, as I've said before, and as you know, of course, Zoom classes have a wonderful advantage of the fact you're at home and you can lay on as long as you want to. And my recommendation is, if you have the time and if there are no pressing obligations today, that you just lay until the body gets itself up. That is definitely the most powerful thing to do, the most profoundly restorative, and will absorb everything that needs to be absorbed completely. However, many of us will still feel enormous benefit if we don't have that extra time, if we come up in a lovely sort of investigative slow way. So whether you're coming up now or later, these will be the steps, or these are the steps that you'll follow. Wiggling your toes and ankles, feeling into them. Moving your wrists and fingers, feeling into them. Bending the legs and placing the feet onto the floor and scooting the buttocks under. Allowing the lower back to completely release into the breath with a few deep breaths. Rolling over to your left side and drawing the knees up towards your tummy. Then rolling after a while, not straight away, but when you're ready, to the other side. And coming up slowly by rubbing your eyes, running a hand through your hair, stretching out limbs, and coming up when you feel ready. Thank you so much, gang. When I look like I'm looking at you, I'm actually not, because the screen with you on is over there. So when I look like I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at you. Like now, I'm looking at you. So thank you, everyone, very much for your time. Really lovely to see you. I so appreciate you coming. You can still come to Saturday mornings, but they'll be in real life at 9 a.m. If we go back into lockdown, all the classes will go back into Zoom, but at their new times. So you need to know the new times, which will be, I can tell you briefly now, but you can email me and ask me if you don't, or look on social media. 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, that's Zoom only. Wednesday evening, 5 p.m. in Brixton, not Zoomed. Thursday, 7 p.m. Zoom only. Friday, 7 p.m. Lots of sevens here. I've done that on purpose. At the Brighton Buddhist Centre. Saturday, 9 a.m. at the Brighton Buddhist Centre and Zoomed. And Monday, 7 p.m. at the Brighton Buddhist Centre. That's a lot to remember, so don't worry about that. Just email me, I'll send it to you. Love you all. Thank you so much. How great to see you. Thank you. Loads of love. Have the best ever day. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tess, Carol, Sabi, Emanuela, Nell, Celine, Claire, Hannah, Jessie, Joe, Jenny, Daryl, Celine, Sarah, Kate. If I said everyone, if I missed you, I'm sorry. Oh, I love you. Have the best day.
Bye-bye.
Mwah, mwah, mwah. Ciao for now.